There you go. Sorry, Morgan. We just started recording. You all might get a message that says, if you don't want to be on the recording, you have to leave the meeting. But now it's being recorded. So
Morgan, were you able to start it on your end?
She couldn't, so I just started it.
Yeah. But thank you.
We're good. Yeah. Sorry about that.
We should have done that at the beginning, but so anyway, this is what we're talking about for these things that are not actually palms. They get keyed that way. So here's back to our first question in the online tree key. Are the leaves simple or are the leaves compound? So if you choose that the leaves are compound, these are your classic palm leaves. And there is a little bit of diversity in palm leaves. So we're going to talk about that when we classify palm leaves. And if you just learn these 3 categories of leaf types in palms, then you'll recognize all of the palm diversity in front of you. So you can have a pinnate leaf, and this is what you're seeing right here. This is a pinnate leaf. It's like a feather. It has a central main axis and then little leaflets coming off of that axis. This leaf type is characteristic of everything that we call the feather palms because it makes leaves that look like a feather. Then you might imagine that if each of these little leaflets were divided again, you would get a bipinnately compound leaf. And that's a leaf type that's characterized by all the fishtail palms. So only fishtail palms have a bipinnate leaf. And then there is a palmate leaf. So that's in this shape right here. And the palmate leaf, it looks like the palm of your hand with all of those little leaf tips coming from a central point. And that leaf is characterized by the fan palm. So here are what those palms actually look like. So here is the Karyota palms or the fishtail palms have this leaf that's divided twice. You have all your fan palms, the fan shaped leaf, and then you have all your feather palms. And so we thought it's reasonable that somebody could walk up on a palm, look at the type of leaf, determine if it's a fan palm or a feather palm, and then make a selection. And when you do that, you might later on in the key get asked this question, which is, are the leaves forming a crown shaft or not? So we want to explain what a crown shaft is. So sometimes palm leaves, sometimes palm leaves, this is the base of the leaf or the petiole of the leaf, and it meets the stem and it clasps around the stem. And sometimes the leaf is just attached directly to the stem like this. But other times the leaf is attached way up here, and then it forms the sheathing base of the leaf, which we call the crown shaft. And then the point of attachment is actually down here. And so that can be a great tool for distinguishing different species of palms, is whether or not it forms that crown shaft or not. So that's a choice in the tree key. 2 really common palms that you can see in the landscape all the time are Roystonia Olaracea, the Caribbean royal palm, or Roystonia regia, the royal palm. And both of these palms have a crown shaft. So that's what these red arrows are pointing to. You can see this bright green. They're not always bright green. In some species, sometimes the color is indicative of what species you're at. But here are these 2 palms. And actually these 2 palms are distinguished based on how the canopy or how the leaves are held in the tree. So notice that with the Caribbean royal palm, the leaves are all above the top of the crown shaft. So they're all held upward, whereas, and Matt's doing a demo for me in the back, whereas in the royal palm, the leaves are held downward and they actually go below the crown shaft. So
these two palms are often mixed up in the landscape, and it's a character you can see from hundreds of yards away. If the leaves are up like this, it's the one, their trunks are very similar. The crown shaft that Jenn's saying is very similar, but always with the Roystonia regia, which is more common, the royal palm or the Cuban royal palm, the leaves are hanging downward like that.
Now in Hawaii, we just thought it would be useful to share a list of the 5 most common palms. So the Eureka palm, the Manila palm, the Alexandra palm, the royal palm, and the Fiji Fan Palm. These are the most commonly cultivated in people's yards and gardens and streets.
So Eureka, Manila, there's the Alexandra palm, also naturalized palm, especially on wet sides of many of the islands. Here's the Cuban royal palm right there, or the royal palm. And then here's the Fiji Fan Palm, the most commonly grown of the Pricardias. And it's not a native Pricardia, it's native to Fiji.
So we're going to leave palms. Does anybody have any palm specific questions they want to ask now? Technical terms or biology or botany of palms?
I'm curious to know if there are like what kind of distinguishing features on fan palms would we be able to like pick out for identifying like the low loom, like the native fan palm here?
Yeah.
Maybe we show that on the online key.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean the
yeah. So there's some really easy ways to tell the different Pricardias apart, Morgan, and a good way for us to answer that question would be for, you want to just click over there, or should we do that later?
Let's do it when we show it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll show you the different Pricardias, and then you can see, some of them have the inflorescence coming out past the leaf. Some of them is within the leaf. Some of the leaf shape is slightly different. As soon as you know the characters to tell them apart, you can tell them apart pretty quickly.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. And those are hard. It's hard because if you're not familiar with the right specific character, and this is true, you guys, of plant ID in general, if you're not familiar with the character you should be looking for, they can all look the same. And really, if you start to key in on the right things, then you can start to tell them apart really nicely. Yeah.
That's the advantage of the key. And I guess I should say, we've only highlighted these two characters here for palms, which is what the leaves of the palm look like, and then if it has a crown shaft or not, as we pulled those out as being technical terms that people might get tripped up on if they didn't know what those were. But there's a bunch of other questions in the palm key that are relatively straightforward, which will help you distinguish individual species of palms.
Like notice that the Dipsis lutescens, or the Eureka palm here, or the golden cane palm, it goes by many common names, is typically it can be a multi-trunked clumping palm. That's something that you look for. Is it a single trunk? Is it a multiple trunk? Does it have the crown shaft or not? What are the type of leaves? All these things are combined together to get you to from unidentified to identified.
And was there another question that I heard somebody maybe starting?
That was me. I was wondering, because it's hard to see with the mouse, if you could identify those 5 on the screen again.
Oh yeah, sure. And
Maybe start in the top left and go clockwise.
Yeah. Okay. So here's your Fiji Fan Palm. That's a
in the top left.
Top left. Can you see the mouse there? Let me circle on that one in the top left. We'll go from top left and we'll go clockwise here. So this is Pricardia Pacifica, the most commonly grown of the Pricardias. It's a fan palm like that. And then right next to it is the royal palm. The royal palm is a feather palm, but notice that the royal palm's leaflets, they're coming out in all the different angles, like a feather duster,
as opposed to just coming out in sort of a single plane, like a flat leaf.
Like the Alexander palm. Notice that the leaves here are in a single plane. They're both feather palms, but the leaflets here are in all planes. The leaflets here are one flat plane on these. So that's what we have here, the Alexander palm. Coming down here is the Eureka palm. This is Dipsis lutescens, the Eureka palm, and that thing is so widely grown all over the place on Oahu and all the islands, and it's grown as a hedge oftentimes, and so you just see it clumping in these massive hedges and so on. It's grown as a house plant all over the world. There's a huge horticultural nursery industry around this plant on Hawaii. And then right here, this last one right there is Adenidia morillii. That's the Manila palm, and it is another fan palm. It's different from these other fan palms here, and notice that its leaves are very curved. See the curve in the leaf right there, and the fruit become bright red. It also has a crown shaft as well. So the leaves are here, but then there's this area of the leaves that are sheathing around the stem above the inflorescences, above where the fruits and flowers come out. So those are those palms. And you guys should know that we have we're going to show this to you, but we have the Pacific Islands select tree where you can just put in palm, hit return, and it'll show you all the commonly grown palms, and you can get 15, sometimes more photos of each one of those and the characters of each one, which we'll show you. So we will get to that. That's a good question. And was it Anna? Is that right? Anna?
Yes, that's
Resilient
right, Anna.
Oahu? Yeah, your friends call you Resilient Oahu though. So Anna, I hope that answered your question, and we'll go over more of it. But one thing that we've created on the Pacific Island Select Tree is basically an encyclopedia of all the common trees that you would run into, with really great photos of all of them.
I have a question. This is Pat Griffin, and my fellow urban foresters and I have been working in Lydgate Park on Kauai in a grove of a lot of Milo and Australian pines. And in the midst, there is a palm that is palmate. It's a fan palm. And it's a single trunk. It's got kind of a fuzzy trunk, and did have a seeds blossom, although we don't know the color or anything because they're pale. But my question is, could that have come from a self-planted seed, a volunteer, or
in Lydgate, you said, is where that is?
It is.
I've been in that park so much. I'm trying to think if I know the exact tree you're talking about, but I think in that park there are some Livistona chinensis. You know that species. Are the fruits small and blue, about this big? Have you seen fruits on it?
We have not seen the fruits, but they do hang down, and I've seen the desiccated leftovers of it, and it is very near the where the septic, what do you call it? The sewage treatment plant is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Pat, you can also, if you email me a photo of that, I'll identify it for you too. And it sounds like a Livistona to me, but it could be something different and special.
Okay, but the question, I'd love to do that, and I will. But the question is really, are these all human planted? Or
So you're asking about, I'm going to paraphrase your question. You're asking about what we would call naturalization or weediness, and because obviously on the islands there's large problems with some palm trees that reproduce on their own, and some palms don't reproduce on their own. And a good example of palm that is rarely found reproducing on its own would be Pricardia Pacifica, even the Manila palm. This palm right here, which is the Alexander palm, is widely naturalized on the wet sides of many of the islands, particularly around Hilo. Huge clumps of it, and whole forests are forming of the Alexander palm, and those are not planted by humans at all. So a lot of the trees that are in cultivation can become naturalized. We've included those in this identification key because you run into them when you're trying to do your inventories, is that you see things that weren't planted by humans, but they're also important for identification. All right, so moving on from palms to the other major group, which is conifers, and then the real identification difficulty comes in the broadleaf trees. The conifers are pretty straightforward, and the conifers there aren't very many of them. In fact, there's no native conifers to the islands, but there are some that are widely grown. There's some species that look like conifers, although they aren't actually cone-bearing gymnosperms. But here are your common conifers. And I'm going to put Cassiorina here, which is ironwood. I think you just called it Australian pine, Pat. It goes by a number of common names. A lot of people look at it and it looks like a pine tree in the distance, although it's not a pine tree. It's not a conifer at all. But Cassiorina equisetifolia, or the ironwood, often grown and found in coastal areas throughout the islands, is a conifer-like thing. And then there's the arbor vitae, the oriental arbor vitae, or platycladus, that's grown in people's front yards. Is a small little conifer all over the place. A more and more popular tree is Afrocarpus falcatus. That's the African fern pine that's everywhere, and it's got linear, almost broad leaves to it. And then you all have seen this. If you're on the islands at all for any period of time, you see the most widely grown, naturalized forestry conifer, which is Erikarya columnaris, or the cook pine. originally brought to the islands by Captain Cook. And the Cook pine, you can tell it from a long way away. You can tell with binoculars from miles away because it's very tall and linear and columnar, and it's often leaning, and they're leaning slightly to the south. It's often misidentified, and people call it the Norfolk Island pine, although the Norfolk Island pine, although there are some on the islands, is actually very rare compared to the Cook pine, which is everywhere. Erikarya heterophila, the Norfolk Island pine, is here on the right. And in the same photo, growing next to it is Erikarya columnaris, the really common thing that's everywhere on Oahu and other islands. So there's the conifers, pretty straightforward. What's not straightforward and is the most difficult is the broadleaf. In telling broadleaves apart, you need some technical words to be able to tell them apart, and we're going to go over a few of those.
Yeah, that was just a brief introduction to the conifers, because really most of the diversity on Hawaii is here. So in order to get into the technical words that you need in order to use this online tree key, we first have to talk a little bit about what is a leaf. And so here's your general botany lesson for the day. So what I'm showing here is a stem, and leaves come out of the stem in a regular pattern. And everywhere that a leaf comes out of the stem, we call that the node. And at the node, there's always a leaf and a bud in the axil of that leaf, which I'm showing you here. And I wish I could make my mouse a little bit bigger. But anyway.
Just go slow and everybody can see,
Yeah.
see the mouse, hopefully.
Okay, so you have a leaf, and the leaf is really defined by the bud. And so it often becomes very important to find the bud, and then whatever is just to the outside of that is your leaf. And leaves are diverse, but generally they often have a stalk, which is called the petiole, and they have a flat green part, which we call the blade. So you have the blade and the petiole. Some leaves don't have a petiole. Some leaves have a divided leaf blade, and we'll go over some of those details in a second. But always a leaf with a bud in its axil. And in this situation, we're showing a stem with one single leaf at each node, or a node, we can also say a position along the stem. So it goes a section of stem, and then a leaf and a bud, and a section of stem, and then a leaf and a bud. And that pattern is genetically fixed within plants. And so it's always going to be the same in the organism that you're looking at. So then the next question becomes, how many leaves are attached at each node or at each point in the stem? And we have some technical botanical terms for those answers. So there could be a situation in which there's only one leaf attached to each node, and that's what I'm showing you here on the left. So a single leaf at the node, and then stem, and then another single leaf, and then stem, and another single leaf, stem. So what we call plants that have just one leaf attached at each position on the stem is, we say that they have alternate leaf attachment. Alternate means one leaf attached at each node. Okay, so then maybe you can have two leaves attached to each node, and that's what we're showing you here. So the stem goes up, and then there's a node, and you got a leaf, two leaves attached there. Stem, two leaves, stem, two leaves. And we call this condition opposite. So if you have two leaves attached at each point on the stem, you have opposite leaf attachment. And the orientation of those leaves can vary, but whenever you have two leaves attached at the node, you have opposite phyllotaxy. If you have three or more leaves attached, you're in this far right condition, and we call that whorled leaf attachment. And so really, this is sort of a fundamental question in trying to identify plants. How many leaves are attached at each node? 1, 2, or 3 or more. Those are your options. And if you start to pay attention to that, it can help you identify a lot of the plants that you're looking at, because some whole plant families are defined by only having alternate leaves. And so if you find anything with opposite leaves, then you can rule out all of those families. And that's what the online tree key is trying to do. So for example, if you have selected that you're looking at a broadleaf tree, the very next question is going to be, are the leaves opposite, whorled, or alternate? And so you're going to push this button. This says, do you have a plant that has 2 leaves or 3 or more leaves? Or do you have a plant with only 1 leaf attached at each position on the stem?
That's a pineapple guava on the left. And notice the pineapple guava, it is always has 2 leaves attached at every position on the stem at every node. And on the right there is Trema orientalis, a weedy tree, mostly on the Big Island. It's called Gunpowder Tree, found everywhere around Hilo and so on. And notice there's definitely only a single leaf attached to every position on the stem. So alternate versus opposite. And no Trema, no gunpowder tree in the world has 2 leaves attached to every stem, and no pineapple guava on the left there would have only 1. So what Jen's saying about it being a genetically determined character, it's an awesome character, because if you look for that, you can immediately eliminate so many things of what that tree is just based on this single character alone.
So that's the first question when you encounter a new plant. And the second question involves what the leaf form
shape is. Yeah. So here are a bunch of leaf shapes, and when you ask a plant, what is your leaf attachment, right? That was the previous thing. The answers are 3 possibilities: alternate, opposite, and world. Well, when you ask what the leaf shape is, the second question, there's 4 possible answers, and on this drawing here, there's those 4 possible answers here on the drawing. There's actually 4 different conditions on this drawing. The one on the far left here, which I'm circling, is a simple leaf. Word is right there, simple leaf. That means the leaf blade is not divided into leaflets. So the blade itself is undivided. It has a leaf stalk that Jenn talked about that comes down to the bud at an area where we call the node. So there's a node there. Notice each one of these leaves is alternate. Each one of them is only shows 1 leaf. Here's 1 leaf on the position of the stem. Here's another single leaf at position on the stem. Here's another single leaf at a position on the stem. So all of these are alternate, but they have different leaf shapes. So the first one is simple. The second one here, the leaf blade is divided into leaflets. And when the leaf blade is divided into leaflets, like it is on many leguminous trees, we call those leaves compound. And so when you have a compound leaf, the blade is not simple, the blade is divided into leaflets, and the leaflets are oriented in different positions in different ways. And the orientation of the leaflets can really help with identification. And so I'll go over those orientations here. And the second one right here is when you have what's called a pinnately compound leaf. So here's the node, here's the leaf attached, 1 leaf is attached, and its blade is divided into individual leaflets that come off the edge of the central axis. Sometimes there's trees in which these leaflets are divided again, and so you have a bipinnately compound leaf, and that's what you have here. And this would be an albizia tree, and many leguminous trees have leaflets that are divided again into secondary leaflets. So this leaf right here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaflets and many secondary leaflets. And then here on the far right, this condition, we call it palmately compound, because here the 5 leaflets are all coming off the tip of the leaf stalk, and they're emanating from the tip of the leaf stalk like fingers from the palm of a hand. So that's palmately compound. So that's a lot of words, and those are the 4 main shapes that you would see on tree leaves. And so if you have a mastery of these 4 shapes, you can really go through the process of eliminating what things could possibly be. And just to reiterate, here's a simple leaf, a pinnately compound leaf, a bipinnately compound leaf, and a palmately compound leaf, all in this drawing here.
Yeah, before you move on, Matt, actually go back. So
Yep.
it just want to make the point here that sometimes people look at this and they get confused and they think this might be part of the stem and it has 2 leaves attached to every position, and that this is opposite phyllotaxy or opposite attachment. And so sometimes it gets confusing when you're looking at trees. What is the actual leaf? And so what you have to go back to is the bud. That's why the bud becomes so important, is if you find the bud, then the thing outside of the bud, or just to the outside here, is the leaf, a whole leaf. And then you can interpret the structure from there.
And we can do that with these pictures right here. Right, because on these pictures here, all these are all simple leaves on the left. Here's some simple leaves of ficus. Here's a eucalyptus simple leaf. They have different shapes, but the blade is not divided at all into leaflets. Here on the right are some simple leaves of a
Not
tababuya,
simple.
sorry, of compound leaves of a tababuya tree and an albizia, in which how do you know that these are leaflets and not and they aren't individual leaves? Well, because the axillary bud is back here. The bud is here. And so everything on the outside of the bud is all of this here. The bud, where's the bud for this leaf? Well, it's back here. So these are this is a leaf that's divided and then divided again. So this is a bipinnately compound one. And notice these are palmately compound, because each of these leaflets comes off of the tip of that leaf stalk. So those are examples of different simple leaves and different compound leaves here. You're there, yeah.
So if you choose that you have a compound leaf, the next question that you'll be asked is what kind of compound leaf? And here is just an example of leaves that are pinnately compound. So that's leaves that are like a feather, just like we talked about in fan palms. So they have a central axis and the leaflets are coming off of that central axis. This leaf right here is sort of a unique condition in that it only has 3 leaflets. And sometimes that's confusing because you could think, oh, it looks like it's palmately compound. And it's actually this extension being a different length than these 2 little stalks that tells you that this is actually a pinnately compound leaf with only 3 leaflets. And in botany, we give that a special name. We might call it a trifoliate leaf. But
so the coral trees or willy
Yeah.
willy has leaves that are like that. It's a compound leaf with only 3 leaflets.
And then here are just a couple examples of bipinnately or twice pinnately. Those are the same word, different leaves. Then as you make selections about the leaf attachment and the leaf shape, we decided to separate out trees based on whether or not they bleed a milky white sap when damaged, because it's a pretty great character that you could walk up to a tree and pull a leaf off and then just look if it's bleeding milky white sap or not. And so the question here is, does it bleed milky sap or latex, or does it not bleed that milky white latex?
And here's some examples of trees that bleed milky white sap. You all have probably pulled a leaf off of Plumeria and seen that it bleeds pretty obviously white sap. Ficus do the same thing. There's the bee still tree in the middle there, also bleeding white sap. And so this is a nice and easy character that is there year round. You don't need any fruit or flowers to see it. All you need to do is pull off a leaf and you'll see if there's sap there or not.
Okay, so what we were hoping to do at this point is actually practice using this key. And so this is the key, the tree that we're going to attempt to key together. And I'm going to pop out of the presentation and jump into a web browser. This is a tree that is common on the streets of downtown Honolulu. So if you're on Oahu, it'll be familiar to you.
And hopefully it's not familiar to you and you can then identify it right now. So here's the participation part of this online workshop here. So what we're going to do is you're going to go through the key with us and we'll make it so that you can do it with us and then maybe do it on your own at some point. So do you want to jump out of the presentation here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm going to put the link in the chat. And if you have the ability to, then you can open that up and we'll walk you through it here just for a second. And so we'll walk you through it here in a second. The link that I gave you. Okay, share that screen.
Okay, all right, so go here, share screen, that one right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, can you all see that shared screen of the web browser? Some thumbs up, some shakas. All right, good. All right, so
this is what it looks like. We're going to click on the online tree key.
So we're here, Pacific Islands online tree key.
And then we're presented with those first few questions. And then it might be fun for everybody to attempt it. And we'll put the picture of the tree back up. Just go new share. So here's the picture of the tree. And we'll give everybody some time to attempt to use it.
Okay, and you guys can you can unmute, you can yell at us, you can ask questions, you can do whatever you want here. The idea is to try to use this online tree key and ask the questions that the tree key is going to force you to answer some questions based on what you're seeing here. So say you walk up to this tree in Honolulu, you look at it closely and you see this, and you can see that you can see the leaf attachment we talked about. We wrote specifically here that it has no sap because you'll need to know that. But you would know that on the street by pulling off a leaf and seeing it has no sap. So feel free to try to identify this.
And we can go over, we will go over the path here at the end, and then you can check your answer.
Should we say? So once they get the answer, what should they do?
I guess it'd be great if once you've worked your way through it, you could just unmute and say, I'm done. And then we'll sort of know when everybody's had a chance to try it.
Yeah, I have a split screen, so I'm okay.
Okay, great. Technically advanced.
Larry's done it. All right.
I think I got it too.
Okay. And Morgan and Larry, did you guys know this plant immediately when you saw the pictures?
No, I did
That's
not.
great.
No,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it was unknown initially to you.
Mhm.
yes, it is.
That's really exciting.
Okay, actually, I had an idea what it was, but I guess the common name that I'm more familiar with was listed under the additional common name. So going through the key, it did match up. So, but I wasn't 100% sure. So that was exciting to be kind of confirmed.
It was helpful with the flower.
Yeah. I think that was Wei who said that it's helpful with the flower. And with this key, we've mostly focused on leaves. And the reason why is because the flowers may be there, they may not be there when you're trying to identify a tree. It's very frustrating if all you have in an identification key is a flower to go off of, and you walk up to the tree and it's not in flower. So we've really tried to emphasize vegetative features.
Okay, Steve, Linda, Bruce, Teddy, Laura, how's everybody doing?
Actually took these photos right on New Avenue, right by Foster in downtown Honolulu. That's where this specific species is used as a street tree there, but it's used in a number of places.
Okay, I'm gonna click out of this and go back to the tree key, and we'll just walk you through the steps to get there. So this is a broad-leafed tree.
Did everybody get that? First of all, not a palm tree, not a conifer. That was the easy part.
And then the question is, are the leaves opposite, whorled, or alternate? And in this case, there's one leaf attached per node, so the leaves are alternate. And then the question is, are the leaves simple or compound? So is the leaf blade entire, or is the leaf blade divided into leaflets? In this case, it's deeply lobed, but it's still just one blade. And so we're going to say simple leaves. And then now all we have to do is measure. The question here is, where does it keep going?
It's a weird thing with the share.
Huh. The question is, are the leaves greater than or less than 1 inch wide? But look how small it is.
Yeah, that's strange. Huh? Zoom is not working well with this.
Are the leaves greater than or less than 1 inch wide? So in this case, the leaves are pretty big. It has to be pretty small.
Can everybody see that? That was the leaf shape right there. Look, the leaf is shaped like that. And that is a 1 inch. So that's about how big those leaves are when you find them on a tree.
So we're going to say they're greater than an inch wide.
Greater or less?
Greater. So more than an inch.
Yeah, most definitely. They're as wide as your cell phone.
But they're less than 12.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then they are, in this case, they're less than 10 inches wide.
So we'll select that.
And then the question is, does it bleed milky white sap when damaged or not? And we told you no milky white sap. So
Sweet.
we're going to select that one. And then the question is about the edge of the leaf or the leaf margin. So is the leaf margin toothed or is the leaf margin smooth? And these is many examples of a smooth leaf margin. So it can be deeply lobed, like you see in that leaf there.
But not with
still
teeth.
smooth.
Many trees have teeth along the leaf margins, and this one in this case didn't. So we'll choose this. And then, are these leaves two-lobed? They most definitely are. You guys probably all saw that. So, and they're not like this. They're definitely have two major lobes. And we come here and it shows the leaves, the trees with two lobes.
So these are the only 4 trees that have those characteristics. And at which point, the way that we've set up this key is that it's linked to select tree, which we'll talk about here in a second. So what that means is that each tree answer takes you to this tree characteristics page, which tells you the scientific name, any old scientific names that went by, a bunch of common names. And we're actually trying to build this common name index so that it includes common names from all the regions of the South Pacific. So Micronesia, Samoa, Fiji, Guam, all of them. And then there's a lot of photos of the tree and then information about the tree. If it has a Hawaii weed risk assessment, it's there. If it has a plant pono link, we've put the plant pono link there, a bunch of characteristics about the tree and how it's generally planted in the landscape and other considerations that there might be. So this is what we call the trees page. And so if you come down to those 4 trees, we thought 4 was a reasonable enough number that you could just look at each of these species pages.
Oh, that whole time they weren't seeing it.
Oh, you weren't seeing it.
Yeah, because it opens in a new window.
Oh, darn.
We can see it.
We
were
actually
saying
saw
it
it.
before. Now
Oh,
we're
you
not.
saw it. Yeah, okay, you guys could see it. Yeah.
Okay, so for example, here is a different version of a tree that has those same characteristics. So smooth leaf edges, more than an inch, but less than 10 inches wide, alternate leaves,
Two-lobed.
2-lobed, and no sap. 4 options in Hawaii. So
Let's go back to the presentation. No, let's just go right here for a second and go to that. Yeah.
oh, well, I guess, yeah, no,
And-
we probably should. We'll do it.
You want to share that one? Is what you want to show the presentation?
I was just gonna go here.
Okay.
So we've been talking about the online tree key, but it's worth saying that we also have a paper version, and that's this middle link here. And what this is a printable PDF of the same type of key. Now, instead of having buttons with pictures that you click on, it's just words on a page, but it's really nice to take out into the field with you if you're going to be somewhere where you can't use your cell phone.
And these are just two mutually exclusive statements, basically. And you based on the material you have, you choose the difference between those mutually exclusive statements. And so in this case, if we went through the same thing here, we would say, is it a palm or a palm-like tree? No, it's a tree or a large shrub with a branched trunks. Are the leaves scale-like and needle-like? Is it a conifer? No, the leaves are flattened blades. And then we would come to those questions that we asked you about. Are the leaves opposite or are they alternate? So you choose 3.
Let me say something here first.
Go ahead.
So what Matt said is that these are two mutually exclusive statements. They're always paired by a number. And you always, when you make your choices, you work your way down the key and you always then advance to the question that's directly below what you've just chosen. So if you choose, we call this 2', leaves with flattened blades, then the next thing you're going to read is 3, which says leaves are opposite and or world, or 3', which is that leaves are alternate. And there's a cool thing that each of those bolded words is hyperlinked to a definition of what that word means. So the PDF is actually really awesome to use on your computer as well. We give you a ruler since you need that for measuring, and some images of alternate, opposite, and world. Those images of the leaf form, the simple leaves and the compound leaves. Then keep going.
Down further.
Yeah, well, let's just look at the palm key. So since Anna asked about palms, here is the key to each species of palm.
Yeah, I think Morgan asked about the differences between the Pricardia, and here are listed all the differences between the Pricardia. For instance, if you see Pricardia thurstonii, the flowers and fruit clusters are extended way beyond the leaves, and each one of these is linked to that select tree page for this. If I link this, will you see
I
it?
don't know.
See what happens there. Can you guys still? Oh yeah, you did see that. So notice here that in Thurston's palm, that see how the flower and fruit clusters are way beyond the leaves here. They're way out beyond the leaves, and
Click on that.
and you can see it here. That's obvious that's Pricardia thurstonii always has that characteristic associated with it. Let me close this out. I'll go back. And go to here. So all of this document tells you the differences between the different Lulu palms. Pricardia maideni has these diamond-shaped leaves and outline. Then the Fiji Fan Palm is here too, and you can link to each one of them. What's the difference between all the different phoenix, all the date palms? They're all here as well. So this document has all of that stuff. I'm going to stop the share.
Now, one thing that's worth saying is that these keys are inherently incomplete. Because we decided what species to include in them, and we included the most common things that people are likely to encounter in the landscape. So if you are at a botanical garden looking at a weird rare tree specimen, it's possible that that species is not going to be keyable with either of these two keys. And we're sorry, but we always love adding species, and we will add species if you say like, oh, this species is a tree I keep seeing, or it starts to be planted, or it's become weedy and it's more common. We are improving these resources all the time, and we'll add them as people request.
But most things that you're going to see are going to be in this key, and I like that. That Anna said that using the online key, I arrived at the correct tree, but selected compound and bipinnate. And I appreciate that I'm not automatically led down the wrong path by making one mistake. Would the paper version have done the same? The answer is yes, the paper version would do the same. Sometimes you would interpret that leaf as a compound leaf. And so what we do is we think about how people are going to interpret it, and we send them in one direction or we send them in the other direction. But if you interpret it wrong,
you might get to the right answer.
You might get to the right answer, because we would assume that people were going to interpret it wrong in that way multiple times. And so why don't we, I'm looking at the chat here and does anybody have any questions or specific things they would like us to address? Now that you've seen the tool and you've seen how it works, can you picture yourself using it? And can we help you with questions about using it? And Jen and I are totally fine with awkward silences too, so.
We should also show select tree if,
This
Is
is
there a
very
phone
useful to
version?
me.
The phone version is actually what we showed you. The phone, it will work just fine on your phone. If you go to the website on your phone, the reason why, so there's two things that happen on your phone, right? There's apps, and then there's a web browser through your phone. And the reason why we didn't do an app is because everybody has got a web browser and it's much easier to use sometimes. And so the web browser will actually work on your phone, and you just click on your phone through the different choices rather than doing it online.
it's pretty friendly on the phone. Do you want to jump into select tree?
Yeah, sure. Let's share the screen again. And you want to show the browser? You want to do it that way? Okay.
Yeah, so is there a link for the PDF version? You want to drop the link to Pacific Islands in there? It's on my computer. It's the pages document is open.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Is it the same site at the beginning?
It's
Yes.
the same site at the beginning. Yeah, the same site at the beginning has go there. This is the main site. If you always come to hang on, wait a second. This site right here, there's the three main links there. The one in the middle is the PDF key. That's the actual document. The one on the right is what you'd click if you wanted to go through the photos and do the photo key. And the one on the left takes you to a thing called Pacific Island Select Tree. And Jen just clicked that. And there's Pacific Island Select Tree. And what this is it's 195 commonly grown, the characters for 195 commonly grown trees on the islands. And so way you can see all those trees is you could just go up into the search thing there and hit return, and it'll list all those trees for you. There they are, 195 species. And you could go through them and you can see that there's native things there's weedy things, there's non-native things. You're seeing acacia all the way through pineapple, guava, and the different palms. And if you click on any one of these, you'll see a bunch of photos and all the characters that Jen showed you. Here, for instance, is breadfruit or ulu. You can see that all the characters for it there. There's some leaves and fruit photos, all of that. And then there's a bunch of information there in the general information, a link to the plant pono link, the native range, all of that type of thing. There's a ton of information about these 195 species on this Pacific Islands Select Tree. And in addition to that, in the Pacific Islands Select Tree, in addition to getting all these photos, you can, if you go down a little bit on the website, right here, you go to this search by characteristic thing. And the one idea about Pacific Island Select Tree is not only that, I was looking over at this other computer. Sorry, you guys. Not only that is it for identification, these tools, but they're also for planting, what's appropriate for planting. And the way this works is you could search the database of all these trees and say, for instance, is it a Hawaii native? You could put in flower color, you can do all these things, and then you search that and it'll search the database and send you back the trees that match your characteristics. And I don't know what you put red flowers and a
native in a red flower.
There you go. So you get Ohia. So and there's all the pictures there of Ohia. So,
and some people use the search by characteristic actually as a tree identification tool.
You could do that where say you saw a tree that has opposite leaves with red flowers. So put in opposite leaves. There's opposite and
what did you say? Opposite and red?
Red flowers. Yeah, let's try that. Let's do it. All right, there's 4 possibilities of trees that you would see with opposite leaves and red flowers, and that's the sausage tree, ohia, the African tulip tree, Spathodia campanulata, which is weedy on windward sides and all over the place, and then there's the mountain apple. So those are the of the 195 species, those are things with red flowers and opposite leaves.
And since Anna asked about palms, you could just type in palms.
Here's 31 commonly grown palms. And again, the one in Lidgate Park, the one go to Livingstone chinensis right there. So this is what I thought it was based on your description. But it could be, it could not be. If you send me photos, I'll obviously identify it for you. But you can look at that and see. And that's Pat. Pat, you're on Kauai, right? So that's worth looking at.
So that's how Pacific Island Select Tree works. Another way that we use it commonly is that you can type in just about any name here into the tree search. So for example, you could start to type in Delonix and you'll get Matt's contacts. But it will autocorrect all of the names. You could say acacias, and here's all the acacias or anything close to that. And then you get to the tree page. So we wanted to provide a site with really well curated photos, since a Google image search can just be a total mess of what's on there. And then also it's this search by characteristic button that allows you to select the criteria that you want and then have it return all of the trees that meet your criteria. So again, that is all on the Pacific Islands page that we shared with you at the beginning. Does anybody have any questions that we could answer?
How about this? Has anybody seen a tree that they don't know what it is in their recent efforts? Maybe at the golf course, maybe wherever. What do you got? You guys know all the trees you see? No problems.
Bringing up another challenge is the confidence that I can identify a tree, and probably it's not right. You know?
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think, Anna, one advantage of doing it this way and coming to the end and actually getting to see a ton of photos of the tree is you can really say like, oh yeah, that is actually what I'm looking at. So you have the confidence at the end of your ID event to see the actual thing. And Jenn is writing right now to everyone. You can also just text me and I'll tell you what the tree is. People all over the world, they have an app on their computer which really identifies trees well. That's called Text Matt Ritter. But
we really do love
yeah,
seeing
send
the
us,
trees.
email us photos of the trees you're challenged by, and we'll help you with it. Dead trees have been a minor challenge to ID. Yeah, they can be. You know, a lot of trees you can identify them by the form of their branches, and alive or dead, you can identify those. There's our 2 Calpoly emails, Yost@calpoly.edu and mritter@calpoly.edu. If you guys write those down, you email us, you'll get a response, and we'll probably be pretty stoked to hear from you.
And then for those of you on Oahu, I'm sure you've seen this already, but we are coming to the islands. We're coming to Oahu and the Big Island in January, and we're going to do an in-person workshop where we actually use the key with plant material and identify a bunch of trees together. So if you're able to join, Morgan, you probably have the details and the link for that. Morgan can put the registration link in there, and then that'd be a really nice time to practice. And we encourage, if any of you are able to make that, practice with some trees. Let us know what's confusing, what obstacles you ran into, and we will either change the tools to make them better or help you identify your tree.
Thank you. It's been changed a little bit since the last time I saw it in June. And thank you very much for taking your time and help us. We definitely will. Our plan is to take this tool out. Now you guys talked about it, then I have excuse to use it in the field. And one of the challenge we had in the golf course was the governor's plum. And I look, it is not in one of the 200. So the golf course has some unusual trees, but on the street
Cool.
tree, your tool is wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah, and we also have iNaturalist alerts. So whenever anybody tags a tree from Hawaii on iNaturalist, we get it. But really, the citizen foresters are a great way to know what is being grown, right? We haven't been to every inch of the island, and so if you start to see more of that tree, or you think that it's important enough to include, we'll just add it to the key.
Yeah.
You
only
found
saw
that
one.
governor's plum way? Did you, was there fruit on it? Did you eat it?
Yeah, we ate it.
Nice.
Jamie is the one that helped us to identify it. So we huddled around at the bottom of the tree. I think Steve and Linda were there. We tried it. It's pretty sour.
Yeah, it's pretty sour.
Yeah.
Flaccordia indica. There is one in Foster as well, and so it's just, that's a rare tree. On Oahu, it's a rare tree on the islands in general. It's like being in a botanical garden if you find that tree.
Yes. So we were very surprised to find it. And,
cool.
We're gonna make jams out of it. The tree is about 30 feet tall, so most of the plums are way up high.
Yeah, they get to be really big in the wild. It's from northern India, and it gets to be a really tall tree.
Laura asked about seedling trees, and for the most part, you can use this key on seedlings because we tried to focus on leaf characters. Now, the only caveat I would add is that sometimes when the leaves are first coming out, they're very small. And so since our key depends on leaf measurements, you want to just make sure that you're using a fully expanded leaf. But once the leaf is, fully expanded and looks green and mature, then as long as if it's over, 1 inch, you'll see the attachment, you'll see the leaf form, and it should work. Harder to confirm when you don't have those reproductive characters, but.
Yeah, seedling trees can be difficult, especially in real weedy situations, because you're seeing all different sizes and ages of that same species and just germinating seeds and that kind of thing.
And sometimes the leaves change, like the koa.
Yeah. Obviously, with a lot of acacias, you'll have these bipinnately compound leaves when they're young, and then as they become mature, on mature trees, they become simple, like koa. Yeah. So are you writing a link in there? Yeah. So what I hope is that you guys will find this to be empowering in a way that you can go to an unidentified tree. You can use the basic language that is present in these trees. I mean, in the keys, and then go through the process of going from unknown to known, and then confirm that your identification is right. It's a really wonderful thing when you identify a tree on your own without somebody telling you what it is. And you've all probably had that experience. It's a wonderful experience to have, where you just use your own botanical skills to identify something. And what we've done here is hopefully create a tool for you where you can use those botanical skills to identify unknown trees.
Yeah, I definitely will try it again. Thanks, Matt, and thank you, Jenn.
Yeah, and
it's
so
exciting.
So a huge thank you to the citizen foresters, because you guys are like the tree keepers, and it's a very important role. We both live in California, and we have our own version of the citizen foresters here. And it's just amazing what a dedicated group of volunteers and tree lovers can do for a community. And we need trees more than ever. So thank you, all of you, for the hard work that you're doing in caring for these trees in the places where we all live. So thank you very much. And Morgan and Wei, thank you, Smart Trees Pacific. And we look forward to seeing everybody soon on January 9th.
Yeah, come see us in person if you can. It'll be wonderful.
Happy holiday and
Happy
we
holidays, you guys.
Thank you,
Yeah.
we got the
Thank you.
okay.